I'm Stacy Grinsfelder,
And I'm Daniel Cantor.
and this is True Tales from Old Houses,
The Minisode. A Minisode.
a minisode, the summer minisode.
A bonus Minisode.
So yes, just to be clear, this is a bonus minisode. This is the what I did on my summer vacation minisode because season 10 actually starts on Monday, September 11th.
Yes, so mark your calendars. This is just a little bonus thing to see you through.
Yeah. And I don't know about you, but how many weeks did we take off? We took off like 6 weeks or something, and I almost forgot how to do this. Like, I'm looking at the software thinking, like, how does that work? Do I push the button here? It was kind of funny.
Yeah, I completely forgot. I all last season I had my little camera on a tripod and then I realized it just clips onto my computer. I'm like, why didn't I? So, I think we're really shaping up for an excellent season 10.
Yeah, I do too. I do too. I'm actually remote. I'm one step away from a digital nomad at this point. I'm in Salt Lake City. I am sitting on the floor and I also need to apologize in advance because there are some construction workers right outside the window banging around at regular intervals. So I don't know if that's going to translate here on the minisode, but thankfully this is what we call casual episodes. So if you hear banging around, it's not at your house, it's at mine.
I do like that no matter where you are, there's a nice gallery wall behind you.
And there is, yes.
Always.
I've positioned myself strategically here in the Salt Lake City apartment. And yes, Andy has been working very hard on this gallery wall.
And I'm still in front of Crumbling Blaster and like a weird file folder that I
Yeah, I
couldn't tell
like
you
it.
what's in.
I do like it.
It's authentic. How's your summer been?
I was going to say it's on brand, but yes, how is my
It
summer
is on.
going?
How dare you?
Ah, my summer was good. It was a little crazy. You and I, we both did. You participated in the window workshop. I taught the window workshop at Silver Lake Institute, and we had a great time. It was so fun having everybody there, meeting all these like-minded people who were just as passionate about window restoration as I am, and I guess you are by because you have to be, right? Because we make you.
I'm legally obligated. Yeah, it was so much fun. I was like kind of blown away by, I mean, everyone was so great and fun to meet and really like there to learn and get their hands dirty. And they came from far and
They
wide.
really
It
did.
was like
I know.
we had
Louisiana.
Texas, we had Canada, we had Louisiana, we had South Carolina, North Carolina, one of the
Think it was,
Carolinas.
yeah, I think it was North Carolina, but yeah, that was really wild to me that they came that far to learn window restoration, and I loved every second of it. I think, we've kind of done a little debrief, Brad and Caitlin and I. Brad, of course, from Itty Bitty Bungalow, you know him well, and
Yeah,
Caitlin,
I've met them.
you've
Yeah.
met them. Caitlin Mivas from the Landmark Society, and I think we're planning on doing it again next year. Maybe even more than once, but we'll see. I'm not gonna.
So exciting. Yeah, it was really fun. And what I really loved was like, so we've talked before about the sort of population at the Silver Lake Institute is on the older side. And they are just like, I'm not sure they totally grasp social media. I'm not sure they totally grasp this interest in like the windows that you're supposed to replace, right? And so they're like
Right.
just completely flabbergasted by all of this happening. The Tom pulled me aside at one point and was like, "All right, you mean to tell me that you're teaching people how to fix these windows and they're paying you for the privilege?" And I'm like, "Yeah, that's exactly what's happening."
Yes, yes.
He just couldn't believe it. Tom's a real joker. He's hilarious, and I know he's a retired minister, but he, in his younger years, was a professional house painter, and at the time that he was doing that work, restoring windows was just sort of part of the job. So he's like, "Yeah, I can glaze a window," and to him, it's sort of, I guess, just a normal part of work. But for people our age, this is nobody taught us.
It's true. Did you
So
happen to read the Perry Herald, the article in the Perry
I
Herald?
did. Well, yeah, I think I did.
Yes. I Oh, okay, so you know what they called you, right? They
Oh yeah, my new name, Dan Kamder.
Dan Kamder. So I read the article and I read the whole thing through and I was thinking, Dan Kamder, I never met him. Like he must be one of those board members at the Silver Lake Institute. And then I realized they were talking about you.
Yeah, it's like cancer with a sinus infection. I like my new identity. I'm pleased with it. And so from here on out, or maybe it's like my stage name.
That's
I
what
don't
I
know.
think. It could either be your stage name or the name you use when you don't really want to admit to something. So it's like, oh, Dan Kamder said
Right.
this. Yeah, that kind of
Or
thing.
like signing up for like a mailing list.
Yeah, Dan
I'll make a
Kamder.
new email.
Yeah.
Dan Camder.
Exactly.
Um,
My father-in-law's mother, she's long gone, but our last name is Grinsfelder, and it's very difficult for people to spell, difficult for people to pronounce, even though it's entirely phonetic. And so whenever she made reservations or anything, she used to always just tell them her last name was Green.
oh,
Simplify things.
that's nice. I
Yeah,
mean, I guess that's basically how our names all got changed to something easier to pronounce.
sure, sure.
Do
Yeah,
you know if Grinsfelder was it Grinsfelder in the old country? Which I'm not sure what country.
it would be German, and I don't know. I married into this name. I don't know, but I'm sure if my mother-in-law hears this, then she will tell me because she is in the know about all things Grinsfelder.
Well, I can't wait for an update
Yeah.
on that. I've really been dying to find out. So we did window workshop. That was end of July-ish, right? I'm all messed up.
I
And
know.
then it was like a week or two, and then you went to Canada.
So I did go to Canada, but before I talk about that, let's go back to Tom for a second because he was kind of an integral part of another big thing that went on with you
Oh
this summer.
yes. Oh yes, a big thing. So it didn't totally occur this summer because it really was through the winter and the spring, but Brad and I recorded an episode of a show on the Magnolia Network called In with the Old, and I've been informed it will be streaming and then airing on TV on the 20th. And so you were involved, Tom was involved. So you might get to meet Tom on TV, but you, of course, met him in real life. We were not renovating on the Finger Lakes in Western New York with no plumbing and no heat in February for our health. It was because Chip and Joanna Gaines call and tell you they don't actually call. We've
No.
never talked to them or met them, but but it was an opportunity that came Brad's way, and we talked a lot about it and decided to just go for it, and we did it, and I think we grew as a result. I thought it was really fun. I enjoyed it, but it was hard. It was stressful.
Yeah. And I was lucky because I didn't really have all the stress that you and Brad had. Basically, I came in one day, did my part, had a total blast, and then I left. And then I came back for the party. So it was a delight for
Right?
me. I loved it. All I had to do was make sure I was groomed properly and was wearing something that was acceptable for television. And then that was it.
You did both beautifully. It was really funny. Because you came for, I think, the second shoot. So it was the middle of
It
March
was.
and it was really cold in that house. And you were trying to work with window glazing and it got too hot and then
Oh,
it
that
was
was
too cold.
hilarious.
It was subpar conditions, let's say. But on these shows, I think even though Magnolia shows generally don't feel kind of as formulaic as other home TV you see, they still do sort of hit certain marks. So one of those marks with this show is like you always kind of bring in an expert for something, and so Stacy was the window expert, of course, and came and instructed Brad on how to restore the windows that he was already mostly through restoring.
Well, I sort of chafe at the word expert. People know that about me because expert assumes that I don't have anything else to know or to learn, rather. But not true. Of course, I don't know even close to all about window restoration, but I do have a very good
You
handle
don't?
on. Yeah, I know it's shocking, right?
You've lied to me.
I've lied to you, but I do have a very good handle on beginning window restoration. So I felt very comfortable with what we talked about. But I was dying over that or the putty that we used, the glazing putty,
Yeah.
because I put it in the crock pot to warm it up. And then I'm trying to get it onto the rabbits and everything, and it's just sticking to my hands and it's stretching all over. And Brad's like, I hate this kind of putty. This is why I don't use it. And I'm thinking, but this isn't normal. This isn't normal. This is just a disaster. And it'll be interesting to see how that part plays out. I mean, I'm looking forward to watching the entire show, but I'm also, as a professional, not an expert, I'm interested in seeing how they cut that section about window restoration. And just to put it out there, Brad and I were wearing our personal protective equipment in case that does not come across on the show. We were trying to make it really clear, like, we need these people to see us wearing our PPE. Like, this has to be shown. But of course, you can't talk in PPE and you can't,
Right.
yeah. So we'll see how that works out. But yeah, so
Yeah, I can't even remember how you solved it, but I remember the producers being like, "Do you really need to wear those masks? We can't hear you." And you were like, "Kind of, mostly, so we don't get hate mail from the internet."
well, we don't want hate mail, but we also don't want lead poisoning as well. So,
Sure. Yes. Yes.
I feel like after working with Brad a lot, I wanted lead poisoning less than Brad wanted it. Brad seemed open to
Right.
the idea.
Brad's lead curious, let's say.
Okay, well, that's all. That's funny. All right, anyway,
It's fine. You
yes.
know, if he didn't want to be talked about, he shouldn't have acted that way.
So remind us again when the show comes out.
So streaming on Discovery Plus, and I believe it'll be on Max as well, and then airing on September 20th
On the Magnolia Network, right?
on the Magnolia Network. Yeah. And I believe it'll be the fourth episode of season 4. The first episode came out a few days ago. It's Christina Solway, who is super talented. We just met her actually. We went to
Oh,
their
fun.
house in Hudson for dinner. They were lovely people. So yeah, I that's all I really know. But it was really fun to kind of go on that journey. Like, I feel like it's funny because on the show, you can't talk about being on the show, you know? Like,
Right.
that's not. What I'm trying to say is renovating a house as a couple is a very stressful endeavor. And so Brad bought the house in May of 2022. And then we sort of spent that first summer renovating the house, sort of at our own pace and figuring it out. And it was really fun. And the whole time I'm kind of like, this is crazy because, like, we're not fighting. We're like working together really well. I love it. And then the TV show comes into the picture. And I'm like, is this going to ruin our relationship? Because that's a really stressful thing to add on top of it.
Absolutely.
And we made it through well, and I had a good time. But I could have done without the winter part. We were also staying in the house, and it wasn't until I think the second to last shoot in April, which is still cold, cold, cold up there. And they were like, "Where are you guys staying?" And we're like, "In the house, obviously." And then the producer goes, "Why didn't you ask the production for a hotel room?" And we both just looked at each other like, it just never even crossed our mind that that was possible. So if we look a little tired and haggard, we were doing our best, but
Oh, you both looked
it was
great.
cold. It was really
It
cold.
was the cold that kind of seeped into your bones after a while. That time when you
Hmm.
go through a whole winter in Western New York or probably Hudson Valley. I don't really know much about the total winter or the winter where you live, but in Western New York, you kind of just put up with it for a while and all of a sudden you realize like I don't know that I've been warm for 3 months
Right, right,
or more. Winter lasts for 6 and you just kind of just go through it
right.
until you realize that you are cold all the time.
Yeah. And then the summer comes and we complain about being too hot. And it's sort of just like how we are on this coast,
It's one of our fun little quirks, yes.
just chronically uncomfortable. So that was like spring. And then my summer has mostly just been about working on the cottage, same cottage.
Mhm.
It's happening.
And you recently showed the color that you were painting things on Instagram, and I would love, love, love the dirt on the pushback you received.
Well, to my audience's great credit, I they learn. And so I think most people are aware that if you tell me that you don't like it, number one, I'm spurred further to do it. And number two, I don't care. And number three, I might tell you you're being rude if depending on the delivery. So I didn't actually get a lot of negativity. I guess I should make clear. So I painted the woodwork in one of the bedrooms. I part of my problem right now is like I'm so bored of myself. I think doing these land bank houses, especially because with those I do play it very safe with paint. I'm just kind of, and it's also a function of like I'm involved in, 5 renovations at the same time. It's way easier to just be like, okay, walls are all Benjamin Moore Halo, for instance, and trim is all Benjamin Moore Oxford White, which are colors I just lifted from my own house. So with this, I'm like, I just need to not want to fall asleep halfway through what I'm doing. So I painted it a really, really bright yellow, sort of hopefully in the vein of like a Shaker Village kind of yellow, not like a French's mustard yellow, I
Right.
guess. But either way, I like it, and I'm not exactly comfortable in the bright paint territory.
Well, I love it because remember I texted you a picture of
I
something. It was
know.
so
And
funny.
it's like the same day we're sharing a brain.
Yes, I think
Finally.
so. Yeah. I think it was Brad who texted me and he's like, or maybe it was you. I don't remember. Let me try it again.
It was Brad because he was like, "Oh, Stacy's also painting something very bright yellow." I'm like, "Are you
I
serious? How
know.
dare she?"
That was funny. Yeah, I painted that just to one up you like 6 months ago. So
Yeah.
I was on the yellow train like way before you.
Oh,
Yeah. No,
okay. You discovered
I
yellow?
discovered yellow.
That's
I know.
crazy.
Who knew?
I'm so proud.
Yeah, so it's just a cabinet upstairs that I painted a yellow, probably more orange than yours. Anyway, I did not even share it because, for one, the room is not done, just like everything else that I do. Nothing is complete. And also, I don't know. It just seemed like maybe it would be. I wasn't open for discussion at the time either.
Controversial.
Yeah, maybe controversial.
Yeah.
But I love yours is going to look fantastic.
I hope so. It feels like a real commitment. I'm very excited. The floors are supposed to get refinished starting next week. So when this episode goes up, probably this week. And I think that's gonna really change things, hopefully in a good way. But it's like it's a whole plane of surface that is going to change, and that will change everything else by extension.
It will. It will. Because you'll probably, I don't know, I mean, I would stop putting so much extra stuff in there when your floors are nice because you don't want to get them or you don't want to ruin the floors. So because of that, you'll start moving into the next phase of this, which is bringing things in and keeping things clean. And I don't know. I'm speaking for you now. That's what I do.
No, that's pretty much the plan. So like I've been trying to basically paint myself out of the house, and so I'm not as far as I wanted or expected to be. I will say I think everything's coming out really nicely, but it's just a really slow. I've been talking about it a lot on Instagram, and I'm like everyone has to be incredibly bored of me talking about like patching and sanding, but there's just so much of it. So
I don't think they're
it's
tired of you.
it's coming together. Thank you. And then I did another really bright color, but I covered it up, which was the faux bois
Oh, right.
adventure, which I think I texted you some pictures, but you paint everything like a really bright orange and then you cover it up with some stains and stuff. So
Right. That's cool.
tones it all down. But
Now that it's done, do you like it?
yes,
Yes, good.
I do. I joked with Brad that because I'm like, I don't know like what type of wood I'm really trying to do. Like my goal right now is like if it's passable as wood of
Right.
some variety, I'm happy. So I decided it's Kamder wood, my
Camder.
new,
Camder. I love it from your new name.
the signature Kamder wood.
That's so funny.
Yeah. So I would say it's Brad thinks it looks like a chestnut, and I was like, sure, we'll go with that. But I like it.
One of my favorite lines from one of your blog posts before was when you were talking about how, if you want something to be mahogany, that you should use mahogany rather than pine with mahogany stain. Because if you use mahogany stain on pine, it just looks like pine dressed up as Halloween for mahogany
Sounds like something I would say.
instead of actually being mahogany. I remember that all the time. I think that's so funny.
Yeah, I honestly think I would prefer faux painted pine if that's the goal. But I think it looks really pretty, and it sort of. I think I talked about it before. Like the bath, I did it in the bathroom for all of the woodwork. So there's like a big built-in, and I did wooden baseboards, but it's a tile floor, subway tile walls. It's like 1 inch hex tile. It's everything in the bathroom. I think is classic and pretty and breaking absolutely zero boundaries. Just like I just needed to do something that felt interesting, and so that's where I got my kicks in was faux bois. It was fun,
Good.
but it does turn like normally if you're painting trim, it's 2 coats of paint, and this is 2 coats of paint plus a coat of stain where you get all arty, and then a finish coat of poly. So it turns a 2-step into a 4-step, which I'm very good at doing to myself.
And it was in the bathroom, so at least a small room. It wasn't the whole house.
Yeah. But then it got me like, well, what if I just did like this other thing? So now I'm actually thinking of doing the interior doors,
Oh, yeah.
also faux bois.
That would look nice.
I think it would be pretty.
I don't know about you, but when I did faux bois, I did a much more stylized version of it. But I appreciated the fact that it didn't have to be perfect because nature just kind of does its own thing. And so it didn't really matter exactly where the wood swirls were. I mean, I suppose someone who is an arborist would look at the faux bois that maybe you and I did and said, I'm sorry, but that's not possible. That can't happen in a
Right.
tree. But what do we know, right? We're just having fun.
Well, what kind of encouraged me though was like I did it in part because it is a very like I don't know, when I talked about doing it on Instagram, a lot of people were like, "What is it? The 90s all over again?" And I'm like the 1890s. Like
Right.
this is a incredibly traditional technique, and around these parts at least, like my dining room at least, I'm not sure about other spaces, but my dining room originally was faux bois on the trim work. You see it a lot in attics and basements, my favorites, because they don't get messed with as much.
Mhm.
So you often see these faux bois doors and moldings, and we love, you and I and the others, love to sort of wax poetic about the craftsmen of yore and stuff. But honestly, these are not convincing faux bois jobs, but they are original, and it's what they were doing in, the mid 1800s or whatever. So my feeling was if I can achieve something even like that, that's not fooling anybody, but it is actually what this stuff looked like when they were doing it, I can be happy with that.
Right.
And so, according to me, we did perfect work.
I agree.
Yeah, so I was actually working on the faux bois when I got a FaceTime call from Stacy, and you were.
I was in Canada. I was in Canada, and I'm trying to remember. Oh, I was in Halifax. I was like, where the heck were we? We were everywhere. It was the 10-day trip that I had talked about earlier in season 9 that I was promoting and hosting through holiday vacations. We went on that trip. We had so much fun. Shout out to Heather and John and JP who went on that trip with me. We joined up with a group, people who had booked that tour. And there were, I think, 23 of us, 24 on the whole tour. What a blast. What a nice group of people. Like last year, we went to Scotland and Northern Ireland, and I loved that group too. This group was even better. I know that sounds terrible to say because they were all lovely people, but for some reason we all just really connected this year and had a great time. And we were in I mean, we had some wild times. Wild times. As wild as you can get going to bed at 8 o'clock.
Did you get arrested, Stacy?
We did not. And we are
Did you rob a bank?
no, and unlike you, who was told to leave Saskatchewan immediately, I
Mm-hmm.
am allowed to be back in Canada as often as I would like to.
Should I explain that? Did we ever
We
explain
did.
it?
Yeah, no, we did. You talked
Oh,
about,
okay.
I think we did. We talked about, we didn't, but we don't have time to talk
I don't
about it
think we
today.
did.
We talked about it with Ron Meller on his episode, but I cut that. We just alluded to the fact that you'd had
Right.
problems in Saskatchewan, but that is definitely,
I got deported. I got deported is
you
what
got
happened
deported. Yes. But
from
you
the
know what?
nation of Canada.
Let's do that next minisode because that is a really good story.
Sure.
But I did
I'll
cut
write
that
it
from
down.
Ron's because it was long, but we did. That's funny. I thought we would mention about that. But yeah, so anyway, Saskatchewan. And I am allowed in Canada. We started in Montreal, and truth be told, we did not really spend much time in Montreal because our flight was late. Most everybody's flight was late, so we missed all of our free time the first day. Got in late, went with a guide the next day, and I think the first day that you're all together on one of those things, to me, seems to be kind of a wash. You don't know anybody. You are in a new city you don't know. Like you're just not in a headspace to really take that information and internalize it, and it's fun, but it's not like later on in the tour where you start to get into the groove and you understand how things are going and you just joke around with people and it's a lot of fun. So we did go to
Hmm.
Montreal. Old Quebec is incredible. That was the next place we went. Love these old buildings, cobblestone streets, old churches, like little churches though. We did see some big churches, and I'll be really honest with you, I've seen enough big churches. Is that I feel bad saying that because I know those are supposed to be like the big thing that you see on an architectural tour, and they're impressive. Don't get me wrong. Every one of them is impressive. I take pictures. They're fantastic. I get it.
Absolutely gorgeous. And I'm kind of with you.
Are you?
I could
I
take
feel
or leave a
bad.
church tour generally.
I feel bad.
Um,
I want to go to a church, but I just really want to whip through it, go out the other side, and like, I don't know. I don't need a tour.
some real efficient prayer and
Yeah,
maybe a baptism
I
super
don't know.
fast,
Yeah.
just super fast.
Yeah.
I don't know what happens in church. I'm Jewish.
I don't know either. But I will say we were in one of the basilicas because for some reason they were all basilicas this time. We were in a basilica and they were just starting mass. So we were all very quiet. And this woman came up to the microphone and sang the most beautiful, beautiful song in, I think she was singing in Latin, if I remember correctly. And I just got goosebumps, like full body goosebumps all over because the acoustics in this church were so incredible. And I don't need to be religious to feel that connectedness between people and song and building and history and place and all of that. So I thought that was really special. That was a really kind of standout moment was when she did that because it was totally, unscripted for us. We're just like
Right.
these heathens visiting church for one morning, but uh
Speak for
speak
yourself.
for
Well,
myself.
I do. I think that's like really interesting. It's different to sort of see those spaces just as buildings versus like in action and hearing those acoustics and how that is reflected in the architecture to create that effect. Like that's cool.
Yeah, I thought so too.
I would like to go to a church tour while or a basilica tour while they're actually in use. That seems really interesting.
So we did see churches. We did not see as many churches this time as I think we saw in Scotland and Northern Ireland, and I was fine with that. But my very favorite part, the part that I was so excited about, I'm glad I didn't hype it too much in my mind, but that was sleeping on the train. We had a sleeper
Oh
car.
yeah.
Yes, and we got to cross New Brunswick, which sadly is known as like the flyover part of Canada or the train through part of Canada. And I don't know why. Like I want to go back. I think at one time it was very popular, New Brunswick was, and now it's kind of like on the way to somewhere else. But it's very large. It's a very large province. So we were on the train. We got there at like 11, I think we boarded the train 11:30 at night. Then we slept on the train all night. And then we were still on the train all day until about 3 or 4 p.m. because it was 2 hours late. I loved every second of it.
That sounds so nice.
And I also want to shout out to Joe Peterson because he lives in New Brunswick and he told me how to see his house from the train. The train goes right by his house. And
Oh, fun.
yeah, Joe's been on the show before. We've talked intermittently, email, Facebook, that sort of thing. But I feel like 98.5% sure that I saw Joe's house from the train window. And that was really fun. But yeah,
Let's go. Let's say 100%. You
100%. It was so close. Yeah.
110% said. That's so
It was
cool.
fun. It was tiny, so tiny that my daughter took this trip with me, and when we both saw it,
Uh
like
huh.
it was a lot like an RV, but even smaller. And she just got the
Wow.
giggles. She was just laughing so hard at like how the space was laid out and its bunk beds. And then you have
Uh huh.
in a sleeper car, at least this particular one, if you're in a double, you have your own bathroom, and that bathroom is totally like an RV bathroom where it's just like the shower kind of could rain down on the toilet, could rain down on the sink, everything. There's a drain in the floor. We did not shower because that seemed way too complicated. We just did the whole like,
Mm-hmm.
wipe off the wipe off the important parts, slap a little deodorant on, and call it a day.
There you go.
Yeah, but I loved it. I don't know that I don't know that everybody would enjoy it as much as we did because, like I said, it's very small. The beds are narrower and shorter than a regular twin, and somebody has to take the top bunk. So I
Uh-huh.
thought it would be fun, but my daughter called dibs, and so she got the she got the top bunk right away. But anyway, I'd like to do that longer. But when I was talking to Andy about it, I was like, "Oh, this is so fun," and I explained everything to him, and he's like, "I don't think I would really enjoy train travel." I said, "Are you sure? Because this is something I really want to do." Again, go maybe over the Rockies or something like that. I think that would be a blast.
I'll go with you. That sounds awesome. I like a something where you're just sort of contained.
Hmm.
Like there's nowhere to go. You're just I don't know.
Yeah,
It has this a similar appeal of like a cruise where it's like, well, I'm on this ship now and
yeah.
that's that. And then see what trouble you can get into.
Hmm.
I went on an overnight ferry once from Stockholm to Helsinki.
What was that like?
Boy, those Scandinavian, they are crazy. It was crazy. It was really fun. But yeah, we were quite young. Like, I think I was 19. No, 20,
Hmm.
20, 21.
You were on the party ferry.
It was a total party. It was hilarious because I remember on the top like floor of the ferry, which was basically like a small cruise boat in my recollection, there was some kind of bar and like club, and
That's great.
they called and they had something they called the freak show, which was basically just a drag show, and then after that, like I don't know, we just stayed up like almost all night doing like a conga line to ABBA with a bunch of like old Swedish ladies that were wasted. It was just like the most hilarious.
Yeah, that sounds very
My
different than
youth.
my experience.
It wasn't like that.
No, and we fell asleep, and then during the day, if I stayed still too long, the lull of the train just put me back to sleep. So yes,
Yeah.
I was not partying on the train.
That sounds really nice. Let's go over the Rockies.
Let's go over the Rockies. Let's put that on one of our cross country adventures that we are trying to plan. And I think we have to actually end for today because we've been on for a while. I have more to tell you about Canada, maybe during the first episode of season 10, which starts Monday, September 11th. We can do just a little bit more about the Canadian trip. We will catch up about some other things. This has been fun. My gosh, we had busy summers. Who
It's
knew?
so nice to catch up. I know, and my house is still not done, but
I don't even want to
but it was a
talk about
good
mine.
summer.
Yeah, it was a
I
good
know. We
summer.
have so much to discuss. Yeah, and we're going to have a great season. We have great guests. We have great sponsors. We have, I mean, we've never been more beautiful, in my opinion.
There
So,
you go.
join us. True
Definitely.
Tales from Old Houses Season 10 premiering Monday, September 11th.
Exactly. All right. Well, thank you for listening to True Tales from Old Houses, the Minisode, and we will see you for season 10.
See you then.